So I wanted to make a longer and more detailed video showing my guide dog guiding me around a complex and interesting area. Up until this point, I've only made shorts, so I wanted to test out and see how good I would be at making a long form video. So without further ado, let's get started. Now this is a college campus. College campuses are great places to work with your guide dog because there's usually a lot of obstacles, whether they're students, random construction sites, or just any number of random design choices that don't really make any sense. The first real interesting thing that happens is that right here there are these things called truncated domes, which are usually at curb cuts or just places that you would cross on a sidewalk. And so it goes on for quite a while right here, which is why you see Elwin stop a couple of times because he's trained to stop for these. But he does notice this very, very long crosswalk here. Now Elwin is trained to follow the left side of a path. You'll notice he's staying near the left side of this crosswalk. And so once we get to the other side, he stops at this truncated dome, which is a much more standard one. Skipping ahead a little bit, there is a set of stairs coming up. One to the left is going upwards and one to the right is going downwards. So I know that we need to go to the left to get to where we're going. And so Elwin stops here and he gets distracted. And I'm telling him, you'll see I tell him to go to the left twice, and he eventually does, even though he is distracted. So he's still paying attention to me. And I tell him to go forward. He stops at the bottom of the stairs, but not the top, because at the top, we can just continue straight on the path. There's not really any more obstacles. We're not going up, we're not going down. We just need to go straight. So he continues straight, and there is a pretty clear path to follow. The next most interesting thing to happen is we're going along this path by this school's library when you'll notice that they've put a picnic table out in front of the path. Now, Owen goes around this with no problem, and I don't even need to know about it, which is another thing that is great about having a guide dog, is sometimes you don't even need to know that an obstacle is passed. But it was just really interesting that they put it right in the middle of the path. I don't know why somebody would choose to do that. One of my most popular shorts deals with a construction site. In the video, there are about 5 trucks parked on the sidewalk, and I have to pass all 5 of them to continue on my way. And now a lot of the questions I got were, why didn't you go to the other side of the street? Well, because doubling back would have added an extra 30 minutes to my trip. Or why did you go to the left instead of the right, into the grass, instead of the more spacious grassy area, instead of the one that was closer to the road? Well, I didn't want to go closer to a construction site. But here, what we're about to see is a very minor construction site, I guess, is what you could call it. Now, I'm legally blind, and a lot of people question that. So really, I can see a little bit of what's going on, but I can't really see well enough to determine if everything is safe. And so here, I can feel that the ground is different underneath my feet, and that's why Elvin stops here. And I decide to continue forward. I can see there's construction equipment. I do not hear that it is running, and I think I can see the way forward is clear. And so it's not until Elwin gets up here and stops that I notice that there is a kind of barrier, I guess a fence, a temporary fence is what you would call it. And so I have to decide to turn around and go find a different way. So there are some elements I can see, but I couldn't really see that the path was clear. I thought it was clear. Here Elwin stops for a sign. And I find it, and he gets a cookie because he is a great boy, even though it wasn't technically in my way, but he did stop because it is an obstacle. And so we have to go a longer way around to get to our destination. So this would be a great point to talk about some of the myths around guide dogs and the terrible media portrayal of people who are blind or visually impaired. Now, you've clearly heard me say that I saw some of these elements. And yes, I did. I'm legally blind. I have 2200 vision, and I have a number of different eye conditions. Nystagmus, cone dystrophy. My eyes constantly shake. My visual acuity is bad. Cone dystrophy deals with the cone cells in my eyes not working well. And cone dystrophy, so the cones, deal with color, contrast, and clarity. So there's a number of things going on with my vision. Oh, and I have light sensitivity issues. So the brighter it is outside, the worse I can see and navigate. So clearly I do have some vision. And so guide dogs, you don't need to be what I guess people would consider totally blind. About 80% of people who are considered blind have some remaining vision left. It's a very, very small percentage that would have what we call no light perception. And so with guide dogs, there are different schools where you can go get a guide dog, and most of them are nonprofit, so you don't have to pay anything. And where I got my guide dog, the absolute minimum visual acuity to get a guide dog was 2200 or worse. And so I just barely made the cutoff, but I had to go through a pretty rigorous application process where they had to determine if a guide dog would be a valuable asset to my daily life, and they did. And I went through like 3 weeks of training, and it was great, and he has been a net benefit to my life. And so yes, I do not have total lack of light perception. I do have vision, but it is functional, not great. It works, but it is not the best vision that one could have. And also 2200 is with best corrected lenses. So my lenses are good, and they get me 2200, but I can't be any better than that. So I hope that clears up some of the myths and the misconceptions around having a guide dog and being visually impaired. So moving on to things that are a bit more interesting. So there was some storm damage through this area around the time I was shooting this. So there are some down trees, branches on the left, and on the right is a person with the door open. And I think they may have seen me coming and closed the door, or maybe it was just perfectly timed, but they do close the door right when I'm going by. And so there isn't a narrow space, because Elvin will stop for like a narrow space, like an aisle in a grocery store that's maybe a little bit too narrow, has a lot of people in it, or maybe just like an alleyway. He will stop, and so there was a small space there, so he probably would have stopped if they hadn't closed the door. And so I'd like to think they were just being really nice and friendly, and they saw me coming, and they're like, oh, I should close the door for this guy. But if it was just good timing, that's good too. Here, there's like three different ways to go: straight, left, or right. And so Elvin stops. He might be stopping for the truncated domes. He also might just be stopping because he doesn't know where he's going. Guide dogs aren't trained to just program them and they'll go to the 5 places you want them to go. You need to know through something called orientation and mobility where you are going. Orientation and mobility is a skill that people who are blind or visually impaired acquire through a lot of training, which allow us to orient ourselves in our community and be able to be mobile and go where we need to go when we need to go there. So moving forward a little bit, you'll see this very interesting scenario where we get to the end of a curb, and we could go left here, and I think there's a sidewalk off to the side, and then we can cross this crosswalk. But I decide to go forward and tell Owens the command, find the curb. And he does, you see, go straight to the curb. And I was able to figure that out because I could see the crosswalk, but I could not see the easiest way to get to it. So I put my trust into Elwin, and the find the command is another command that he knows. Find the. Usually he knows that means to find something, and he doesn't know automatically what stairs are or chairs or the curb or any number of those things that I might just need to find in the moment. And so I have to teach him. He knows that he needs to find something when I say find the, but I have to teach him what those things are. So I have taught him chair, I have taught him curb. Actually, curb is one that he already knew. So I have taught him chair, and I think the trainers at the guide dog school also taught him find the stairs. But I have taught him find the chair. I have taught him find the door. I have taught him find my work chair at work. I've taught him any number of things that he can find for me. Also, you saw a lot of manhole covers there, and Elwin stopped for them. He is trained to stop for manhole covers, and I think there's another one coming up here in a second. It is probably one of my greatest fears, falling into an open manhole cover that I did not notice. So it was really just a really cool thing when I got Elwin that they told me he was trained to stop for those. And sometimes he does stop with me right on top of them. It is something that we have to train for. And that's another thing. Elwin is trained. He got 4 months of formal training. But dogs need to keep their training up. So I don't send him back to the school every once in a while. I'm in charge of continuing his training. So every time we go out, if he makes a mistake, we have to stop and go back and try it again. Or we have to, if he blows the curb too many times, meaning he goes forward without stopping, like into the road, or he stops with me right on top of a manhole cover. It is my responsibility to stop and remind him of the correct way to do it, or to just the next time it comes up to make sure that he knows that is still something he needs to do, or to just reward him the next time he does it, and just to keep rewarding him more frequently. So I don't reward him every time he does something great. You see me reward him a couple of times. Here, he stops at a curb, and that is something I could reward him for, but I choose not to, and I think, to reward him at the next curb. You want to reward guide dogs intermittently and randomly. If you reward them all the time, they'll only work for treats. And treats are a good thing to want to work for. I also pet him as a reward. Those are the first two kinds of rewards. And the last kind of reward, besides treats and pets, are verbal rewards. So that would be me telling him that he's a good boy or he did a good job, which he usually knows means that something good has happened. And sometimes that comes with a cookie too. So, or cookies are what I call treats. Main motivation for a guide dog is that they love what they do. They love to get out, they love to solve problems, which problem solving is like the whole point of being a guide dog. And they really need that intrinsic motivation of just loving what they do. The treats, the pets, the verbal praise are all just secondary to what really needs to be their primary motivation. If a dog ever decides that it's not worth it anymore, they don't like it, or maybe something happens and they're too scared to, then we just retire them because it's no longer worth it. If they don't like what they do, then we're not going to make them do something they don't want to do. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I want to get better at making these videos. This is my second one. The first one was a response to a short that I made, and this one is the first full-length one I've set out to do, and I really enjoyed it. I really want to make more of these POV commentary guide dog videos, and if you like it, please leave a comment and tell me that you like it, and I will endeavor to make more really soon. And if you have any questions for me about anything I've said or just anything in general about being visually impaired or having a guide dog, please leave a comment.